Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, before we begin, I'd like to just give a brief introduction to our Sheikh who's here today. Sheikh Munsif Mubarak is a Hafid of the Quran, mashallah, who completed his Bachelor of Science from the University of Toronto. Upon graduation, he spent 7 years in Medina Munawwara studying the Islamic sciences within Masjid al-Nabawi and in the homes and circles of various scholars. Sheikh Munsif completed his associate degree in Arabic language and a Bachelor of Arts specializing in classical Arabic literature, linguistics from the Islamic University of Medina. He returned in Toronto to Toronto in 2017 and went on to complete his Master of Pastoral Studies with a certification in spiritual care and psychotherapy from the University of Toronto in 2021. He is a registered psychotherapist, qualifying and a member of the CRPO. So alhamdulillah, it's a great honor to have Sheikh here with us. And in today's environment and the challenges that we face, and especially within our homes and with our families, it's great to have such great scholars here like this who, mashallah, not only from the religious perspective, but even from the worldly perspective, mashallah, they have a lot of experience. And he works with Al Khalil Center, mashallah, so he has great first-hand experience in treating people and who are going through hardships and difficulties in their homes, and especially people with mental illnesses and all these addiction, depression, anxieties. So alhamdulillah, it's a great honor to have him here today, mashallah. So Sheikh, today's topic, inshallah, what he'll be addressing will be home sweet home, and is to establish a balance in our homes, especially as an Islamic home within our families. So, and this is a great topic for both for the elders, for the adults and the parents, as well as the children, inshallah. So without further delay, I'd like to call Sheikh Munsif, inshallah. And after the program, inshallah, if we do have time, then we'll open up for question and answers, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair.
Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khairan for the invitation. It's an honor for me to be here. It's a beautiful masjid as well. It's the first time I'm here. It's very nice, mashallah. From the outside, you can't really tell, but once you come in, it's very nice, mashallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put khair and barakah in the project. It's another location, right? Yeah, inshallah. May Allah put khair and barakah and grant it success, inshallah. So, as mashallah, our beloved Sheikh, he mentioned the topic to be home sweet home, establishing a balance within the home. And this is the topic. And such a topic, it's very difficult to talk about and have a time limit to it as well. But we do have a time limit, and that's what we're going to have to deal with. So let's start with this. I want everybody, because I don't want this to be just a lecture type. I want everybody to kind of partake of this and kind of think about things as well, because I think that's very important. That's what when it comes to implementation of what, at the end of it, it's about implementing. So in order for us to implement things, we have to actually reflect. So I want everybody to think about something, whether you're a parent, whether you're a husband, whether you're a wife, whether you're a child, be it a son or a daughter. I want you to think about this situation where a family comes to you, and the family consists of a mother, a father, a child or children, and they come and ask you a question. Well, they tell you what's going on at home, and they ask you a question. And they tell you that at home, there's conflicts every day, there's arguments every day. And they're asking you, what's a good way to solve the problem? It's a pretty straightforward question. And I want you to think about how you're going to answer that. So I'm going to give you like 30 seconds or maybe a minute. And there's no right or wrong answer, but I just want you to think about how you think you're going to answer that question. Okay, and then when you're ready, you don't have to answer. But if anybody does want to answer, they can. Sorry? So your answer would be, so you would tell this family, there's a mother, there's a father, there's a child or children, you would tell them that they need to communicate. Okay? Okay, Jazakallah khairan. So the answer, whoever didn't hear that, the answer was they need to start communicating. Anybody else? There's no right or wrong answer, by the way. It's just what comes to your mind. Yes? Make dua for each other. MashaAllah. So these are a couple of answers. But let's think about it. In order for them to really take action on what you're saying, they have to respect your opinion. They have to respect your opinion. Number one. Number two, they have to actually do something about it. Unless they do something about that at home, no matter how many amazing advices are given, there's no change that's going to occur. Right? So the reason I got you to do that was because I think we can all agree that when we have this opportunity to think about it, we naturally start thinking about what's a good answer to give. And we usually are right. Making dua, you need to communicate. You need to respect each other. You need to love each other. These are some of the answers that we can come up with. But unless people actually do that, there's not going to be any change that occurs. So then, how does that change occur, is the question. Let's say somebody comes in to this masjid right now. Somebody just walks in, right? I'm sitting here. And I say to you, he comes in and he walks out. And I say to you, everyone here, I say, this guy, he's a thief. I saw him stealing from this masjid or from so-and-so. And I give you a really bad image of this person. He walks out and then he comes back in. Now, you haven't spoken to him. You haven't even met him before. But just by me giving you this image of this person, you've already made up your mind about this person. And whether you realize it or not, one of the reasons you've done that is because I'm sitting here in this position of respect and authority, because that's the reality. You're sitting in front of a group of people in the masjid. And that's automatically going to allow whatever I say, meaning whatever is reasonable, to kind of enter into your minds. And that is the filter you're going to use to see this person that's coming in for the second time now. So it's subjective. Now let's say that another person comes in, he comes in, he walks up, and I say, this person, he's the most amazing person. He's donated like $1 million to this orphanage. He prays qiyam all night. He doesn't tell anybody. I've seen him myself. He's such a humble person. He doesn't talk about his good deeds. He's very humble. I can just go on and on about his goodness. And then he comes back in. Whatever I told you about this person, you took what I said. That's your filter when you see him. You haven't met him. You haven't spoken to him. So now, let's say the first person comes in and he comes to you, Assalamu alaikum. Hope you're doing well. I'm just looking for a restaurant. Do you know any restaurants around here? I want you to just think about how you're going to respond. I'm not going to ask you what your answer is going to be. Just think about this. You're perceiving this person as a thief. He's coming into the masjid. He's asking you if you know a place to go and eat. Okay? Think about your answer. Now, another person, this other person who I said is an amazing person, he comes in. That person asks the exact same question with the same demeanor, smile, comes to you. and says, I'm just looking for a place to eat. Just think about how you're going to respond, right? Can we all agree it's going to be different? Yes? Yes. It's going to be different. And there's no doubt about it. There's subjectivity there. You took what I said, right? And it could very well be true. It's not about whether I'm telling you a lie or a truth here. I'm just saying how we human beings exist. This is the human condition. That what ideas we have of people, that's going to impact how we deal with them. So this person, he says he's looking for a restaurant, you're going to try to get rid of him. The second person, you might call up your family and say, hey, look, I got a really important guest. Can we bring him over? And you're going to prepare a really great meal, maybe. And maybe a relationship is established because of that. But imagine the first person, I lied to you about that person, that he's not a thief. So there's an opportunity lost in establishing a good relationship with a good person. So we have perceptions of people. We all have perceptions of people. And it's that perception that gets us to deal the way we do with that person. Now let's come back to the home. That person comes to you, or a family comes to you, right? And says, we have conflicts at home. There's arguments. We know the answer. Well, stop arguing. Stop fighting. Make dua. We need to have the right perceptions of each other. The wife or the husband needs to have the right perception of their spouse. The child needs to have the right perception of their father and mother. The parents need to have the right perception of their children. What is right? What is the right perception? We can sit down and discuss how we should think about other people, right? But if we're not grounded in some sort of authority, and it's about what I say, then we can go back and forth. Like I can say, this is how you should view your parents. And then somebody else says, no, this is how you should view your parents. And somebody else says, no, I don't agree with that. It should be this way. So we can just go back and forth. We'll never get to the point. And this is where Islam comes in. This is where Islam comes in. This whole world, the human condition, going back to the human condition, is that we have to submit to something. There's no such thing as, like, we're not getting into atheism, but there's no such thing as atheism. The reality is, it's either you submit to Allah, the creator of the heavens and the earth, or you submit to other things or beings. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He says, أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَى. Have you seen the one who takes his hawa, his desires, his nafs, as his Lord? Ilah. So it's either Allah or your own desires. So we don't exist. There's no other option. Or anybody else. I mean, you can take a person as an authority. You could take an ideology as an authority. So for us Muslims, it's what Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam have said. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Islam gives us an idea of how to see the family and how the family members should see each other. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Khayrukum khayrukum li ahlihi." He said, the best amongst you is the one who is best to his family. وَأَنَا خَيْرُكُمْ وَأَنَا خَيْرُكُمْ وَأَنَا خَيْرٌ لِأَهْلِي وَأَنَا خَيْرٌ لِأَهْلِي, and I am the best to my family. As a Muslim, because we've submitted already, like we've already said La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, meaning we are Muslims, meaning we've submitted to Allah and His Messenger. There's no question, we're not debating that. So did the Prophet ﷺ say that? Yes. Okay. Then that means that the best, if I want to be the best, what do I have to do? The Prophet ﷺ is talking to the men here. The best of you is the one who is best to his family. There's another hadith, the best to his women folk. So the best amongst you is the one who is best to his family. Now, this, if you take this and you really internalize this, right? What you're doing is you're using this as the filter. You're using this as the filter as you interact with your family members. So you have to internalize this hadith or this statement of the Prophet ﷺ. We may all know this, right? These are hadith and these ayat, but we have to internalize it because this is the filter now. You're taking this filter and you're saying, I want to be the best, as the Prophet ﷺ said. And if I want to be the best, I have to be the best to my family. Okay. Well, if you're aiming to be the best with your family members, you have to realize that human beings, each human being is unique, and each one has their good and bad. They have their preferences. They have their dislikes. So between two people, two unique individuals, you're going to have a situation where you like something, but the other person doesn't. The other person likes something, but you don't. Okay. So now, what do? You can fight and say, or argue and say, you know what? It's whatever I say. You could say that, right? But then the other person it's another human being with their own preferences. So what happens? Going back to that example I said, if you say, you should just listen, you should communicate, you should have love for each other, you should listen. Well, what's happening here? One person wants their view to be taken, the other person wants their view to be taken. So there has to be some sort of submission there, right? There has to be some sort of submission and acceptance of the other person's opinion. So when the Prophet ﷺ is saying, the best of you is the one who is best to their family, one perspective the men can hold on to is, if I want to be the best, let me give up on some things for the sake of Allah, because the Prophet ﷺ said this, right? So this doesn't mean you're submitting to anybody else. You're not submitting to your wife. You're not submitting to your children. This is submitting to Allah. Now, the Prophet ﷺ, this is character. This is about character. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Ar-Rahimuna yarhamuhum ar-Rahman, irhamu man fil ard, yarhamkum man fis sama." The most merciful, Ar-Rahimuna yarhamuhum ar-Rahman. The most merciful one, most merciful, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, shall show mercy to those who are merciful. Irhamu man fil ard, show mercy to those on earth. Yarhamkum man fis sama. And the one above shall show mercy to you. So, if we have this idea that I'm going to be kind, I'm going to be, giving up, not because I am afraid or anything like that. This is just me submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now, that's one part. But we have a father, a mother, and children. These are the different positions. Who gives these positions? In this world, if we're talking about professions, we have different professions. We have doctors, we have lawyers, we have engineers, we have nurses, etc., etc. Now, how do we get these positions? How do we get to these positions? How do we be recognized with such a position? You got to go to school, an institution, and that institution, at the end of a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-year program, they give you a piece of paper that says or that authorizes you to be in that position. So you have this institution, university, college, whatever it is, and it's a man-made institution. It's a man-made institution. This man-made institution, at the end of you doing this course, recognizes your position. And this position is a man given, or human beings have given this position. The position of a father, a mother, a child, and this relationship is from Allah. Today we read in the surah, لا أقسم بهذا البلد وأنت حل بهذا البلد ووالد وما ولد. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by the parent, either the father specifically or the parent in general. ووالد وما ولد, by the father or by the parent and what is produced, the child. Allah is swearing by a parent and a child. This position is recognized by Allah. وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ إِحْسَانًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recognizes the position of the parents. Allah is recognizing this. A person can go to college or university, a 2-year program, 3-year program, and gets a certificate saying, now you can be a mother. Now you can be a father. That does not make a person a mother or father. Once a mother has a child, carrying this child for 9 months, حَمَلَتْهُ أُمُّهُ كُرْهًا وَوَضَعَتْهُ كُرْهًا. She carries this child in the womb with burden. Allah recognizes this position of the mother. Allah says this in the Quran about the mother. So this is a recognized position. This institution, whether it's given, the worldly institutions, whether it gives this position of motherhood or fatherhood or being a child, it's irrelevant because Allah has recognized it. Now, with these positions, how do we deal with each other? So Allah, there's the husband, there's the wife, and there's the children. One is, we talked about akhlaq, mercy, kindness. This is for the man. But there's also a structure in the home. If you take any sort of organization, you cannot have an organization where there's no leader. It's impossible. If you're running a company and there's no CEO, you might as well just stop. Because you have to have a position of authority. You have to have a leader. And everybody has to recognize that person as the leader. What that means is when that leader has to make decisions, that decision has to be respected. So what is the Islamic perspective on the positions of authority? This is a very important point. It's not the children, it's the parents. And between the parents, it's the husband. This is the Islamic perspective. So now the husband is responsible for the home. So in terms of the hierarchy, it's the father, the husband. Then the mother, the wife, then the children. What does that mean? It means that when there are important decisions to be made, it has to be made with this understanding that when it comes to that point where only one decision can be made and it's a very important decision, then you have to take this perspective that the one who will make the final decision is the husband or the father. Now, between the husband and the father, there should be an understanding of things, how things should be structured in the home. It doesn't. So we already said, right? that there is mercy, kindness. This is the Prophet ﷺ said, "Khairukum," the best of you is the one who is best to their families. With that perspective, we're talking about the hierarchy. Because the Prophet ﷺ didn't go to his family and said, "I'm the Prophet of Allah, I'm the man, I'm this," and then put on his authoritative position. It's with the kindness and with the love and with the respect that he conveyed his message, and then it was accepted. So if we want our positions to be listened to and accepted, we have to see the other person in the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to see that person. And we have to see each other with love and respect. We have to have love and respect for each other, but we have to see each other in the way that Allah and His Messenger have taught us to see each other in terms of positions. If we don't see that, then we will never ever have a balance, because then it's just about going back and forth about who's right. So we have to kind of take that approach that it's kindness and mercy and care and all these things are there, but we also have to understand that there's a hierarchy and there's a system within the home, and that system is not us saying it, but it's based on what Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said. If we submit to this, then inshallah ta'ala we will find peace and tranquility in the home. And obviously this is not to say that you're not going to have conflicts and you're not going to have disagreements. That's just the human condition. You're going to have that. But this is, you can minimize it, and where you need to bring other people to kind of help with the conversations, you do that as well, right? This is just a starter. This point, there's a lot more to say. This is just about the perspective to have as we think about this topic. Now, I think I'm going to stop there because this is the essential message here. But maybe we can kind of go, maybe have a couple of questions or specific cases. Yeah, I could kind of give specific scenarios, but does anybody have any questions or any thoughts? Yeah, at the end. So let's say, I mean, like Sheikh mentioned, that I do see, I am a psychotherapist, so I have family therapy is one of those, marital sessions, marital therapy. So when couples come or families come, they're coming obviously because there's conflict in the home. Now, give you a typical example. The mother and father will come and they will say that the child is not listening, right? Well, what do you want the child to do? Well, they want the child to dress a certain way. They want the child to limit or not watch certain things. These are things that the parents expect. Not go out past a certain time or be home before a certain time. These are typical things, right? All the parents can kind of appreciate these points. And we can connect it with what I said as well in the initial part of the talk. So now the parents want these things. They want the child to come before 6 o'clock. They don't want them to go out the home after 5 o'clock. This is what they want, but the child is doing that. Child's not listening. How do you address that situation? If the parents are going to keep telling the child that and getting angry that they're not coming back on time, well, the child is listening to this and they're disobeying the parents every single time. So clearly, this message is not getting through, right? The same message is repeated to them, that you can't come home late, but this is repeated over and over again. So what's happening here? This is perspective here. The child is not seeing the father or the mother as an authoritative figure. They're not seeing that. There's a lot of reasons why that's happening, right? Number one, our society we live in, that's a huge impact. Right? You can't remove that reality in this discourse. The society is going to impact this situation. But then what can we do? What is the best thing we can do while we're living in this society? We talked about the Prophet ﷺ, that hadith, خَيْرُكُمْ li ahli, that the best of you is the one who is best to his family. This is very Jawami al-Kalim. The Prophet ﷺ, he would say something and it's very comprehensive. Human beings are affected through the emotions, right? If a person says, if I come to somebody and say, brother, assalamu alaikum, how are you doing? And you know me, and I say, may I borrow $10 from you, right? It's not a big deal. It's like, of course, brother, I'll give you $10. Or if somebody came to me and said that, of course. Imagine somebody comes and says, give me $10. Same request. It's the same request. One, you're going to give the $10. The second one, you're not. Now you have to ask yourself, what is the end result you want? That's what you want to ask yourself. What's the end result you want? So you don't want the child, you want the child to come back on time. How do we get this message across to this child? If it's an emotional issue, if the child feels, and this is not about the child being right, by the way, right? We're just talking about the problem here. If the child doesn't want to listen to the parents, that's the problem. They're not seeing the parents as an authority. But at least, how do we get the children to soften up there? Start off with getting them to be, kind or loving towards you. Change their emotions, affect their emotions. So that's not going to work by saying, do this. Hey, Muhammad, come. I want to talk to you. I think I don't think the way I've approached this is the best way. I'm not saying anything yet, but let's talk about this. Let's discuss this. It's like, well, Dad's never said this to me before. Okay. He might not say anything. She might not say anything, but this is new. It's like he wants to discuss. She wants to discuss. Okay, let's see what they have to say. Okay. Now, how do you talk about it? It's like, look, why do you think we don't want you to go outside? It's for your good. It's like, the parents care about me. They might not say anything. Like, you got to understand that these kids, they don't respond right away. But what are we talking about? We're talking about putting some sort of emotional effect on the child in the heart. So that for the next time you have a conversation, there's some improvement there. The third time, fourth time, this is one thing. And children are here too, right? High school. You guys in high school? Middle school? Okay. High school. Okay. So now you have to ask yourself, the kids, you have to ask yourself something. Parents, right? You're living in your parents' home. You don't have to answer, okay? But just think about this. Who pays the rent? Just think about it. If you want to answer, you can answer. Anybody want to answer? Yeah. Your mom and dad. Okay, mashallah. So your clothes, who buys the clothes? The parents? Okay, parents buy the clothes. Parents pay the rent. What else? If you need to buy things for school, etc., it's who's giving the money? Parents. Who buys the food? Parents. So home, clothes, food. So imagine, I want you guys to imagine high school kids, middle school. I want you to just imagine this, right? I was in high school, so I know. I want you to imagine that the home that you're living in, gone, all of a sudden. All of a sudden, the home you're living in disappears. It's cold outside. How are you going to feel? You're going to freeze. Yeah, not good, right? You're going to be cold. Imagine all the clothes you have in your closet, all gone, except a pair that you're just the one that you're wearing. Food, you don't know what you're going to eat tonight. You don't know what you're going to eat tomorrow. Well, your parents are doing this for you every day. Every single day. And you know how your parents do it? They're working from 8 in the morning to 8 at night. Every single day. So they can provide for you. Now, you could look at it two ways. You could look at this in two ways. You could look at your parents and say, you know what? You have to do that. You have no choice. You have to do that. You have to work and buy me the food. You have to work and pay the rent so I can stay here. You have to work and buy me food because I'm hungry. If that's the way you look at it, basically, your parents are your slaves. That's what it means. That's what it means. If you expect your parents to do everything for you, but you're not going to do anything for your parents or what they ask you to do, that essentially means that they're your slaves. Right? But obviously, that's not how you look at your parents. You love them, you just wish they were nicer to you. So parents are going to be parents. They're asking you to do something. They say, okay, come back before 6 o'clock. That is their expectation of you for the things that they're doing for you as parents. So they're fulfilling a responsibility of providing for you. Now you got to do your part, which means you have no option in that sense. In that sense, for it to be fair, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and now you got to do what you're supposed to be doing. And we talked about from an Islamic perspective, it's not because your parents are telling you, it's not because I'm telling you, because Allah says in the Holy Quran. That's it. Now we submit to Allah, the Creator, who created you and I. وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ إِحْسَانًا. We have advised the human to be good to their parents. وَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفْ. Do not say to them, uff. Do not say anything that's hurtful to them. So this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I mentioned this, and I'm trying to keep it comprehensive, that it goes back to, the emotions. We have to ask yourself, am I going to say what I want to say, or am I going to say something which will cause this person to do what I want them to do? So one is, am I going to do what I want to say, or what I want? Or how can I say it in such a way that it will impact them in a way that they will end up doing what I want? So that's between you and your spouse. That's between you and your children as well. And children, you want to think about it that way as well. So everybody has to do their part. Inshallah. Hope that helps. Yeah. What if? Oh yeah. So what if a question? What if the father does something against Islam? Of course. I mean, this is why our highest authority is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I mean, we're obeying the father or the husband because Allah told us to, not because he's the father. So if the father says, okay, everybody, nobody's allowed to pray, you don't listen to that father, because your highest obedience is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So anytime the parents or the spouse or the husband says something to the wife that is completely against the ethical and moral standards of Islam, there is absolutely no question about this. You disobey. You disobey the creation for obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The wife of Fir'aun, one of the best women that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, was she obedient to her husband or disobedient at the end? Disobedient. And for that she was killed. Why? It was to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when it comes to, we're talking about things that, we're talking about obedience and these things. These are things that Islam doesn't prohibit or it encourages. For things that encourage, of course, there's no question about that. But things that are like just permissible, those are the points that we're talking about.
I think one thing we can ask, maybe add to that is that how do we disagree? Do we have to be disrespectful in disagreeing, or we can be respectful in disagreeing? How do we disagree? Like, for example, if they tell us not to pray, so how should we react? Or how should we respond to our parents?
Right. Okay. So is this children asking or?
With sisters.
Oh, okay. So yeah, if a parent says that I don't want you to pray, it's like you could say, how did Ibrahim alayhi salam respond to his father? Very kindly. Ya abati, lima ta'budu ma la yasma'u. He's asking, oh my father, in a kind way. You could say, Dad, Mom, I know that you don't agree with what I'm doing, but I have no choice. I gotta obey my Allah. Who are you? Or you, the opposite, other way of saying it is, who the heck are you? Right? And be very rude to the father. You're just saying what you want to say. You're not getting to what you want him to see. Because the one who really cares about himself and his family, they want Islam for the father. That's why Ibrahim alayhi salam spoke in that way to his father, hoping that his father will accept Islam. So you want, as a child or as a wife or anybody in the family, that you see the father or the husband doing something completely against Islam. How do we get this? How do we get the message across to this person? And obviously, these points are just very basic points. There are situations where you have to get other people involved as well, right? That's the reality as well.
If situations escalate a lot in the homes with a lot of conflicts and fights, what can that result into? How does that have effect on a child, on a husband, on a wife? And at what point do they need another person to come in, like yourself, or consult with you, or go for therapy?
So anytime that, we talked about perspectives to hold on to, right? Those are important points to hold on to. Now, it doesn't mean that everything's going to be fine if you just hold on to these perspectives, because we're human beings. Now, if you have conflicts, right, you attempt to talk about it with the family members. Say, look, let's take a break. Let's calm down here a bit. We're just getting, this is getting out of hand. Let's pause. Let's sit down together and let's talk about this. Try that. You try that first. Now, if that is impossible, sometimes it's just impossible in the way the dynamics is in the home. That's impossible to even initiate. Yeah, in that when that happens, of course, that's when you come to a therapist, or whether it's Khalil Center or anywhere, or even people that you feel that you can trust, that you bring a family member or a friend to kind of be a part of the process. But the only issue here is that you don't want anybody to feel in the family that somebody is taking a one person's side, right? It's a very important thing, because that goes back to perception. If the husband feels that you're bringing this person, you want this person to come because that person is going to take your side, that's not going to work, because the perception is already there that this person is biased. Same thing with the wife. Oh, you're only calling this person because he's going to take your side. Not going to work, because that person already has the perception. So now a family therapist or family counselor, these positions are there in order to remove those biases. So people don't look at these people as biased individuals. That itself is very powerful. For both people or everybody in the family to see the therapist as unbiased. That is the beginning for some sort of real conversation to occur. Does that make sense? Inshallah, I hope that makes sense.
Is there any other questions?
Any other questions?
One question came from the sister side that how would you get your teenager children to pray Salah on time? That's one of the challenges that a lot of families face, that their children are not praying on time. So what would be that? If you had any cases like that where people came to you, how would you address that?
It was very interesting because I see cases where parents come with their children where it's because the children are not religious. They're not praying. There's parents that come, the children are too religious. Meaning, too religious, meaning, I'm not saying it in a negative way. I'm saying for the parents, it's too much for them. They're too strict. That's the problem. That's the point of conflict. So, Salah, how do we internalize Salah? If parents say you have to pray 5 times a day, and that's all they're telling the children, but they're not praying. They're 15 years old, they're not praying. They're 20 years old, they're not praying. Well, maybe the question to ask is, do they know what the Salah means? Like, have they really understood and internalized what it means to pray? Because what ends up happening is the parents have just been telling their children, pray, pray, pray for the past 10 years. They've never really internalized what Salah is all about. So maybe that's a very important thing that however it's done, is how do we, to ask how to get the children to internalize the meaning of Salah. What is this? Salah is our most important obligation to the creator of the heavens and the earth, the one who created us. This is our obligation to that being. And after we die, this is the first thing that's going to be asked. Now, this Salah, we can't connect it to anything of the world. Or if you pray Salah, I buy you this. If you don't pray Salah, I'm not going to buy you this. That's not going to work, because Salah is not about this world. It's about the hereafter. They have to be motivated religiously in order for them to be praying, even after you stop them even after you tell them to stop praying. So we have to establish an environment in the home where slowly the importance of Salah comes in. And I've mentioned this before as well. Every home should have a culture where they sit down in the evening or at some point in the day. If it's every day, great, but at least, a few times in the week, they're sitting down and they're reading the virtues of praying Salah, or virtues of doing a'mal, and the punishments or harms of not doing it. This needs to be reminded in the home constantly. You're not saying it. The Prophet ﷺ is saying. Allah is saying. So the children they're not gonna contest anything. They're listening. They might not pray today. They might not pray next week. But in 6 months, maybe it would have hit something. And they say, you know what? Man, if I don't pray, there's Jahannam. And if I die, I don't want to go to Jahannam. They might not tell you this because they don't want to talk to you about Islam. They don't want to talk to you about these things. But you're just reading what Allah and His Messenger have said. You read, close it, you leave. You let them be. Read it over and over and over again. 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, inshallah, you will start to see that they themselves are internalizing the words of Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because they have no problem with Allah and His Messenger. They have a problem with you saying it. So that's the thing.
One more question. today's world there's a lot of fitna on the internet. So how to address this situation with your youngsters, YouTube, TikTok, etc. If they, you don't want them to watch
Yeah, I think.
bad things or evil things as well.
Yeah, I mean, this goes. I did mention that there is a hierarchy, there's an authority. Parents have to. There are certain things that the parents have to have that authority. You need to put blocks on it. You don't allow certain things. You just don't allow it. So if there's a website, you put some sort of software and you say these websites are not allowed to go to. Simple, right? Because there's certain things that if you allow, it's just you can't stop. So then it's not about discussing how do we find a balance and how do we find a middle ground to those things. There's certain things with the internet, it's very, very sensitive. So you just block certain things, or you have these programs where you're able to see everything that is being accessed, right? And the children need to know that, like this, we're accessing everything. We could see everything where you're accessing, and they have no option but for you to see all that they're doing. They have no option. It's not like they're asking and saying, come on, why do you have to see what I'm doing? No, you do. You're their parents. And that has to be very clear. Is that inshallah?
I just would like to ask
Yeah.
you something.
Yes.
You said husband is in the position of authority. What about a family which is practicing? They're not against Islam, but husband try not to be really strict.
Mm-hmm.
So take decisions, but decisions are not violent. For example, husband says my kid shouldn't go to school.
Mm-hmm.
So in that position, what the other spouse should do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're talking about the general, right? These are general. So the Prophet ﷺ, when he's saying this, I mean, there are women companions whose husbands are kuffar, right? The Prophet ﷺ is saying this, and there are women companions who are leaving their husbands who are kuffar. They're disobeying their husbands. So we have to keep this in the general sense. When people are doing something that is completely, I mean, they're not making wise decisions, they're not making the right decisions. These are things that a third party gets involved. I mean, families get involved and kind of talk it out. Because by me saying this principle or this rule, it's just for you to understand what the rule is. People are not going to enact this right away. Like if that person is listening to me, he's already going to be doing what he's doing, right? And whoever is listening here, they're going to be doing what they're doing, but they're going to have hopefully a better understanding of what this means. But when it comes to enacting practically, people have to bring about, there has to be some real change. So if a person like this exists and you see this and everybody else around this person sees that, then those people can get involved and say, you know what, let's sit down. We need to talk about this. That's what family is for. That's what friends are for. And you try to change that person's mind. They're not a computer. Human beings, we're not computers. If we're computers, we can just input information into this person and change this whole worldview. And he's going to be a completely different person. But he's not. He is who he is. So other human beings have to compel or kind of convince him to the best of their abilities. Now, the world is not a perfect place. That person may well be just like that. He may be hard-headed and he says, that's it, I'm not going to change. This is who I am. That's the reality. And those are the realities that we have to deal with. The rule doesn't change. Now, in Islam, we also know there's divorce, right? So, that when those situations happen, where it's like a very bad situation and the husband's doing really bad things and they're taking advantage of everybody, right? The rule stays. He's just not in the position to be in that authority anymore. And so there's other steps that are taken in order for that person to not have that authority anymore. Inshallah. Inshallah. Okay. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما اللهم إنا نسألك من خير ما سألك منه نبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ونعوذ بك من شر ما استعاذ منه نبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم أنت المستعان وعليك البلاغ ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين آمين يا رب العالمين جزاك الله خيرا
MashaAllah, Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, for coming out and sharing your wisdoms with us and beautiful the advice that you've given us today. Sheikh is with Khalil Center. You can see the banner there, and there's cards on his way out. A lot of people who come to me in the community at times about mental illness, etc., depression, anxiety. Today in this thing, and I spoke to Sheikh about this in a lot of detail. And I said, look, Sheikh, the people come to me and they say it's al-ain, it's nazar, or if it's magic, or it's a jinn. So how do we find out? What's the difference between that and having some mental illness? And Sheikh, mashallah, is working with the Khalil Center and works with these cases every day. So Sheikh said, if there's a lot of people who come, and I normally refer to him or to the center, Al Khalil Center. So you know what? Take the cards and share it with people. Share this information with people. People are unsure at times. They're not really, certain 100% that what's wrong with them. Why are these situations happening? Why are these cases occurring? Why is it in the family that these always some problems are occurring? So, mashallah, I talk to Sheikh. He's young, but mashallah, he has a lot of hikmah, a lot of wisdom. And even though I'm much older than him, I've known him from a small child. And his father, his family as well. But mashallah, I get to learn. You get to learn from one another, mashallah. So he's experienced in that field. And for further future any problems that you may have, inshallah, you can consult with him or reach out to him through Al Khalil Center. He advises not to give through his personal information. Would you like to add something to that, Sheikh?
Once you're done.
Okay, inshallah. So, mashallah, we'd like to thank him and have him more in the future, and with different topics that we face and challenge in the contemporary world today, inshallah.
Jazakallah khairan. Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh. Sheikh is always, mashallah, very humble.